Dear learners, I am Christina Georgy, your academic counselor, and I welcome you to my session. Today we'll discuss the course code BEGE-144, which is titled Understanding the Novel. For the attention of all my BAG students, this is indeed your course code BEGC-134 titled Reading the Novel. For the attention of all those who are listening to this lecture, let me make sure that this is a specialized session specifically designed for the BAG or BEGH learners, and hence all the aspects discussed in this session will be solely based on or limited to the prescribed syllabus and study material for this particular course code. As your TE is soon approaching, today we will focus our attention towards the most important questions and units that you shouldn't miss with respect to your TE preparation. Over these years, I have received so many questions regarding the most important areas that you need to study with respect to your TE. So I thought I can help you today with that aspect. For that matter, we'll go unit by unit. We'll do a block-wise analysis and we'll look at the most important questions and how to answer those questions. For that matter, before we move into the block-wise analysis, let me just introduce you to the various blocks that we have to study with respect to this particular course code. That is, as always, we have 4 blocks. As in case of most other main core papers, we have 4 blocks. Remember, this paper could be an elective for you. Okay? Yeah. So, block 1 actually deals with an introduction to the novel. So, now that you are not first year students, you must have had a clean foundation on the various literary genres. That is prose, poetry, drama, and within prose you have short stories, novels, novellas, and others. So, here in this particular block, we'll study the various aspects of novel. We look at the emergence or the rise of the English novel in the 18th century and other important aspects. I'll quickly introduce you to the second block. Block 2 deals with a specific novel titled The Awakening, written by Kate Chopin. Remember, this particular course code is exactly titled Understanding the Novel. Hence, all the main core texts that we study within this course code would undoubtedly be a novel. So, when you're writing your examination, make sure that you never mention play. It's all novels. It's not short story. It's not a drama. It is a novel. All the 3 core texts that we study as part of this particular course code are novels. Hence, when you mention the person who has written this, make sure that you mention him or her as a novelist. That would give much more clarity. So, block 2 deals with the various aspects regarding this novel Awakening. We'll look into that in course of time when we do a detailed analysis. I'll make sure that I also discuss the previous question paper with respect to this particular course code. That would be of great help to you. Moving on to a brief glimpse and overview of block 3. It deals with another novel titled Paraja. It is written by Gopinath Muhandi. One important aspect to remember is that this is a novel in translation. It is written in another language and it has been translated into English. So there could be questions. We'll discuss that in course of time. Moving on to the last but most important block maybe with respect to this course code, block 4, things fall apart. We have discussed references of this novel when we studied BEGC-112 earlier. So do understand that this is written by a Nigerian novelist, Chinua Achebe. Chinua Achebe is quite famous I suppose you must have also heard about him at some point in life. Here we study a detailed analysis and overview of this particular writer. So it's time for us to move on to a block-wise analysis. We will go unit by unit and I'll help you with the most important aspects to study. So before we move on to that, let me confirm or clarify or cross-check your comprehension. Are you all following me? Is there an issue? You can be honest with me. Okay. Yeah. So if you look at Unit 1, there you see a definition of a novel. E.M. Forster defines the novel in his work Aspects of the Novel, published in 1928, as a novel should have a minimum of about 50,000 words. Earlier when we discussed BEGC-114, we had a mention of all these aspects. So right from there, you need to be aware of the origins and rise of the novel. These are very important aspects to keep in mind. You may study the types of the novel. You never know, maybe there could be questions. It is of great importance to be aware of all these things. And yeah, these would be the most important aspects to study from Unit 1. If you look at Unit 2, you need to know what a plot means. So this block would give you an introductory understanding to the study of novel. That is, only if you study this block will be able to understand, or rather study in detail, the other blocks to follow. So as part of Unit 2, you also see character and characterization, the types of characters. When you study plot, you will have to study Aristotle and types of plots too. I've given detailed lectures. I'll make sure that I share it with you. And regarding the type of characters, flat characters and round characters, I'll just mention that. That is, flat characters are not so important in the sense they'll have just a single idea or quality. Whereas round characters, yes, sure, I'll come to that. Round characters, on the other hand, have several ideas or qualities. To explain in Malayalam, നമ്മളൊരു നോവലിൽ നോക്കുവാണെങ്കിൽ ഫ്ലാറ്റ് ക്യാരക്ടേഴ്സിന് വലിയ ഗ്രോത്ത് ഒന്നും കാണത്തില്ല. ആദ്യം തൊട്ട് അവസാനം വരെ അവർ ഏതാണ്ട് ഒരുപോലെ ആയിരിക്കാം. എന്നാൽ റൗണ്ട് ക്യാരക്ടേഴ്സ് ആണെങ്കിൽ അവർക്കൊരു ഇവല്യൂഷൻ കാണും. ടുവേർഡ്സ് ദ എൻഡ് ഓഫ് ദ പോയം യു സീ ആൻ ഇവല്യൂഷൻ with respect to the round characters. So make sure that you study these distinctions between a flat character and a round character. I assure you this is not going to be tough for you. It's basically very easy, and luckily you will see questions from block 1. So it would be easy for you if you could attempt questions from block 1. Section 2.4 is also important, narrative modes. So over the course of time, we saw very many narratives as part of the different course codes that we have been seeing. So in all these course codes, there were mentioned regarding narratives. So what do you mean by narratives? You have already seen what a third person narrative is. See here, all these are explained. Okay, even if you have studied novels as part of other course codes, this would give you a strong foundation, and if you're lucky, you'll also get questions from these units. Moving on to Unit 3, which is titled Aspects of the Novel 2, we have a few short questions. See, remember, dear learners, as part of Units 2 and 3 of Block 1, you'll have to study a lot of aspects regarding novel. 6 important aspects for sure, and you can expect short questions with respect to these aspects. That is, if you are a student of BEG, with respect to the course code BEGE-144, as part of your question pattern, you have short questions. You have short questions and also long essay questions. I've discussed the previous question paper with you. Anyway, you'll have to study aspects from block 1 for short notes too. Hence, it's important to be prepared. So, discussing those aspects in detail, style, remember, style of writers differ from each other, and theme is also important, because not just with respect to this particular block, but it can actually help you analyze the coming texts too, because whenever they ask you a question on theme, you could find points from this section. Of course, time and place is important because they form the unities, the three unities, and Aristotle and all such classical aspects of criticism you might have to read about. And regarding section 3.5, I remember discussing this earlier. You need to have an overview. I understand there are certain writers' name which could be tough for you. Nevertheless, make sure that you have an idea of what diaspora is. I've told you diaspora means scattering of people. Exact meaning is scattering or sowing of seed, but in literature, uh, we refer to people writing from different parts of the world. Okay, that has been mentioned there. And third world novels, a few good examples of third world novels and novelists include, but not limited to, Chinua Achebe, whose work Things Fall Apart. We'll study that as part of block 4. Thiongo's work Petals of Blood, Gabriel Garcia Marquez, this is a very important name, and his work 100 Years of Solitude. Salman Rushdie, you must be familiar. His work The Midnight's Children, and V.S. Naipaul, A House of Miss Wars. See, you don't have to study everything, but make sure that you study at least a few. If you study 4, you'll remember 2. Likewise, make sure that you prepare yourself. And now, future of the novel. There you have mentions of 20th century novels that you'll have an idea because we studied as part of BEGC-144. Then, postmodern world. So if they ask you a question, there could be questions on the post-colonial novel or the future of the novel. Regarding post-colonial novel, section 4.5 gives you an overview. See, there's this probability because we are studying post-colonial literature as part of 114, BEGC 1142, and I don't think there will be a question on the future of novel. Nevertheless, it would be great if you could know the key aspects mentioned as part of this section. Anyway, make sure that you do not leave block 1. Block 1 is important. I understand it deals with the basic features, but still there could be questions. Moving on to Kate Chopin's Awakening, which is actually part of block 2. Let me remind you that this is going to be very important for your TEE. If you are lucky, you will get an essay question, sure essay question that you can choose and write from The Awakening. This is basically easy if you understand, and you need to also be familiar with some critical aspects such as feminism and psychoanalytical theory. And they could actually ask you to write an essay based on these perspectives. We'll go unit by unit. That is, if you look at unit 1, it is titled Locating the Awakening, Background and Contexts. So only if you understand the cultural and intellectual setting will you be able to place this novel and to read this appropriately. I understand it will be a tough task for you. So if you look at the most important aspects to study, maybe you can just have a reading of these 2 aspects. But the writer and the novel should be given much focus. Let me say this disclaimer that we never know, there could be questions, but if you are in a hurry to study the most important aspects, then you may focus your attention towards the writer and the novel. Make sure that you study the symbolism in the awakening. I mentioned that because it comes as part of section 1.5, symbolism in the awakening. Symbolism we have studied when we studied poetry, part of BEGC 112. BAG students, you must have studied symbolism when we studied BEGC 133. Anyway, make sure that you have an understanding. The last section of this unit gives you Kate Chopin's, the main works written by Kate Chopin. So this is important. Doesn't mean you'll have to study each and every work, but make sure that you at least have a paragraph knowledge of the important aspects, because I assure you there will be sure essay question from The Awakening. So paragraph number 1, you will have to study from Unit 1. Now, moving on to Unit 2, contextualizing the awakening. There we study the biographical approach to awakening. That is, what do you mean by biographical approach? We study the journey and life of Edna Pontellier in The Awakening. We can see that there are similarities mentioned in the life of the writer Kate Chopin too. So for that matter, biographical approach to the awakening, section 2.3 is an important topic for study. Make sure that you study that. And the Creole background, this is important. It has significance with respect to the language. That is, the city mentioned in the text, New Orleans, has 2 distinct parts, one American and the other French. So Creoles are described as those descended from European ancestors, French and Spanish. So basically it's something related to language. Now comes yet another important aspect to study. When I mentioned biographical sketch, I told you it is important. Likewise, section 2.6 gives you Edna Pontellier and Kate Chopin, their basic character analysis. So this is something that you need to study. This could be a question. Okay. So Unit 2 is all about the biographical sketch or biographical approach. Make sure that you read that, you study that. Moving on to Unit 3, critical responses to the awakening. I don't think there will be individual questions from this unit, but this could be of great help while you frame your last few paragraphs of your essay answer. Normally, the probability of there being a separate question from Unit 3 is limited. But for those who are seriously into scoring high marks, you may learn this in detail. Even if you are not learning this in detail, this unit could actually help you write your essay answers. I'm referring to the last few paragraphs of your essay answers effectively. And as I always told you, make sure that you read the questions that are given towards the end of every unit. If you're lucky, you can see similar questions for the TEE. And now comes the most important unit in this entire block, that is Unit 4, critical approaches to the awakening. Remember, the title is The Awakening. Some just write awakening, it's The Awakening. Okay, title writing is of great importance. It is mandatory to write the correct title. So there could be essay questions either from feminist approach or psychoanalytical approach. As simple as that. You'll receive at least one essay question from Unit 4. I told you this is the most important unit from Block 4. I've discussed in detail the feminist approach and psychoanalytical approach. So I'm not repeating all those again. Okay, so that's all regarding Unit 4. Let me once again reassure you that there will be essay questions from Unit 4. And when you're studying Unit 4, make sure that you study section 4.5. Earlier I mentioned that there could be question on symbolism. So when such a question comes, you will have to substantiate your answer with respect to this particular section. Section 4.5 and the other section combined. Okay, the other section gives you just an introduction. This would give you aspects from the text. And let me once again tell you that when you write answers regarding a particular aspect mentioned in the question, you'll have to substantiate in order to score well. In the sense, give examples from the textbook. You don't have to write your own examples. For everything that you need is given in your official study material. Moving on to Block 4, it deals with a novel in translation titled Paraja by Gopinath Mohanty. So if you look at the very first unit, there you see the life and works of Gopinath Mohanty. It is important, just have an idea. And this is basically an Odia novel. Hence, you could expect a question. So, have an understanding regarding the Odia novel. And of course, you will have to study the detailed summary. And nobody will ask you a question to write the detailed summary. You will make use of that, adapted according to the question that you see in your question paper. In the sense, if you didn't understand, you shouldn't write the entire summary for any question. No question will be there based on write the summary of this particular novel. Of course, nobody will ask you that. The question paper setters will be asking you based on specific aspects. For that matter, we have already discussed how to write answers. You start off with an introduction to the life and works of the writer, and thereafter you give a background information, and thereafter you move on to a brief overview, and you move on to the specific aspects. You can conclude with critical comments. So now let's discuss Unit 2. It gives you socio-cultural context of Paraja. So basically this novel deals with the life of the tribals, and hence you should focus on the subaltern voice. That is a section given in your study material, page 23, 2.4, section 2.4. So this term subaltern means of inferior rank, and it is a word put forth by Antonio Gramsci, later adopted by Gayatri Chakravarti Spivak. I've also given detailed lectures on this. If interested, you may check out. So subaltern groups means these are underprivileged groups. So in the story, we see the life of such a subaltern group of people who struggle a lot, the Paraja. Okay, hence the story of Sukrujani, the protagonist of this novel, is important. The subaltern boys, there could be a question. Please be prepared. And Unit 3 deals with the theme of Paraja and the plot of Paraja. I don't think there could be significant separate questions from this unit, because most probably you will get a question to analyze Paraja as a novel in translation, and that would fall under Unit 4. Unit 4 is very important. Paraja as a translated novel, make sure that you study that. There are certain aspects associated with it. You don't have to write all these examples, but you'll have to mention the basic aspects, and it would be great if you could mention maybe a few examples, not mandatory. So they could even ask Paraja as an Indian tale of survival. Okay, these are the most probable questions, and yes, there could be essay question from Paraja. Most probably a novel in translation. Moving on to block 4. This is the last block of this entire course. So there you could receive background questions. That is, if you look at Unit 1, you see African history. The decolonizing of Africa is important. So it's the choice that you make. If you feel comfortable, you study that. If you are skipping that, make sure that you study all other relevant aspects so that you wouldn't be in trouble. Decolonizing of Africa, that aspect is important. Anyway, you'll be able to read this text only within this background of African colonialism. Okay, just like I explained the concept of colonizer and colonized with respect to Indian context during my lecture associated with BEGC-114. Here, in this context, the colonizer is the British and the colonizer is the Nigerian people. Yeah, and Chinua Achebe is a Nigerian writer. So Unit 2 gives you an overview of his life and works and society in Nigeria. So this also has great importance. It is better not to skip this unit, because if you are attempting a question on Chinua Achebe's novel, this is important, because the There is this mention of the Igbo tribe, the Yorubas, all such things. It is wise to study that, and the life and works of Chinua Achebe too. Let's hope they wouldn't ask you specific work from the specific aspects from the background. Anyway, the remaining 2 units deal with the detailed analysis of this particular novel, Things Fall Apart. Focus should be given to Unit 4, where they have elaborated the specific features of Things Fall Apart, that is man-woman relationship, then maybe folk material, language and style. You need to study these aspects. Let's hope there will be short questions too from this particular block. You will have short questions anyway, so you can receive even short questions from this novel, and most of these short questions will be based on block 1. Okay, mainly you will get short questions based on block 1. Nevertheless, be prepared. And a challenging aspect with respect to this paper is that there could be questions, essay questions from background. See, very often I'm aware that students leave out backgrounds, but here make sure that you have thorough understanding or else you'll be in trouble. So I suppose this unit-wise analysis proved useful to you. What's your opinion? Did you find the session useful? Okay, that's all from this session. I suppose you found the session useful. Thank you so much for joining me.